I messed around a little bit with the settings for my camera. I think this looks better. Then again, I'm also recording earlier than I normally do, so the lighting's going to be much different. It's pretty bright outside. And there's snow too, so it just reflects off of the snow, so it's even brighter. Right. Today's topic. I don't know. I don't know. What a great way to start a vlog. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to talk about really. I was thinking just talk about some questions that I still have that I haven't been able to answer. No, you know what we'll talk about? Okay. I have it. Yes, I have it. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is kind of one of the questions that I've had throughout my mind for a while. I haven't really been able to solve it. I'm just always thinking about it. I mean, maybe I do have a solution. So the question is the goal in life to be an optimal mate? It seems that everything we do is to attract a mate, is to be a better mate. Every way you can improve is to be a better mate. And that's our purpose in life when you look at the fundamentals. Ignoring religion, our purpose is just to procreate. And so you want to have the best fitness so you can procreate as much as possible. There's obvious evidence to back this up. Just looking at how we're built. I mean, dopamine's a pretty good example of the evidence showing why we're driven to do certain things. I mean, some of it is survival. But why survive? What's the point of surviving? To procreate. You could say procreation is kind of a way of surviving past yourself, though, passing on your genes so that you live on. I like that. Right. So that was kind of just the preface. Some thoughts that I have. You can look at anything, really. I mean, academics. The reason you get a degree is so that you can have a job, is so that you can work at a prestigious company, so that you can mate with higher. Your class for mating is elevated. Your status is elevated so that you can mate with more. This is mainly for guys, of course, but then you have females. And they want to look as beautiful as possible because they want their status as a mate to be as high as they can, as high as it can be. It's not a bad thing. It means that you're a viable mate. It means that you're healthy. It means that you're a good choice. And being a good choice to someone else, that's not bad. Then you get into the area of, do you forsake yourself for who you actually are in terms of getting a wider net of mating options? So recently I was looking into being more masculine because I think that's who I have to be as a man, as a mate. My family will need this pillar of masculinity, and I have to be that pillar. Now, I don't have to be a perfect example. I don't think you can be a perfect example of masculinity. I was thinking, who is the perfect example of masculinity? And somebody told me, Jesus. Who's a good male role model? That's the question more that I was asking. It's really tough to find a good male role model these days. Jesus would be the best male role model. A perfect example of positive masculinity. I was struggling to determine whether he has feminine traits. And you can almost say no. It's really hard to tell. So there's two ways about going around masculinity. You could say masculinity. So I've had this discussion with my friend whether toxic masculinity is true masculinity, pure masculinity without any femininity, or true masculinity, pure masculinity is actually the good side. The all is something you should strive for, something that you want. My initial thought was that masculinity is pure masculinity is something that you should not strive for. This is the type of idea that's pushed in hookup culture, that you want to be abusive, dark triad traits. Yeah, so being abusive, being really macho, but having those downsides as well, where you're so masculine, you're so macho that you disregard your partner's feelings, or you ignore her, or you abuse her. But my friend was arguing that's not even masculinity. Masculinity is something that you should purely strive for. It is the best a man can be. It's hard to really clarify to define what masculinity is in that sense, because you have to set thresholds where at some point this is no longer masculine because it's actually bad. I think you could argue for that. Although I don't agree with it, I like that framework better because it's a healthier way of looking at masculinity. The way I was originally looking at it, as I said, you look at the extreme, but that's not something that you want to be. But you can only go off of the extreme if you're looking at masculine. And then once you reach the extreme, well, you can tone it down to be more feminine and become that true masculine figure. But it's just healthier to not even go to that extreme. Just immediately try to be the most positive masculine you can be as a man. Right, females it's different. As a female, you'd want to be the most feminine figure you can be. Right, I was also saying, I mentioned if Jesus has feminine traits. So you could either say he has a perfect balance of masculinity and femininity as a man, so he's more masculine because he's a man, but he does have feminine traits which balance him in such a way that he is perfect. Or you could say he's a purely masculine figure, which is what my friend would argue if he believed in Jesus. No, I'm sure he believes Jesus was a person, but if he believed who Jesus said he was, okay, that makes more sense. So, yeah, he could say Jesus was actually perfectly masculine. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you're just nitpicking. It doesn't really matter too much. The intricacies that you discuss, it's more just reaching this idealized version of masculine, which you'll never reach because, of course, it's perfection, but you can always strive for. And that's a good way of setting a goal. There's elements that I don't fully understand how it would be masculine though. For example, turn the other cheek. Masculine to me would be I'm going to kill you. I'm going to come back with vengeance and I'm going to No, you know what? Masculine would actually be I'm able to forgive you. I don't I am so above that. I have I am so superior that I'm able to forgive you and not only that and love you. Yeah. That's that's the solution. That's perfect masculinity. Wow. And in the book in The Way of the Superior Man. So I finished The Way of the Superior Man. Pretty proud of that. A lot of it was just mumbo jumbo. He was talking about energy near the end of the book. It got a little hazy. It gets weird, but the main ideas are very relevant and they make sense. And I think they're very applicable to a lot of men. Honestly, in this day and age, a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of people just in general forget their polarities as a masculine or a feminine figure. I mean, females are now seen to be as equal a breadwinner. You want a female to have an equal position as a man. Okay, this is going to get controversial. It already got controversial. Who am I to say? Regardless of merit at some points. I mean, DEI. Look at DEI, where I don't even care. No, I care if you're a man. If you're a man, I the fact that your gender plays a role in whether I will hire you. But the opposite, where it's like if you're a female, I'm more likely to hire you just because I have DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm getting a bit sidetracked here. So, goal in life to be an optimal mate. Working out is for a mate. Academics, as I said, is for a mate. Job, career is for a mate. Anything. Maybe not everything, actually. I'm thinking now, doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is not for a mate. It's just to please yourself. It's just to get this dopamine that you would have gotten if you had done something productive to get a mate, to advance yourself, to get more options for a mate, for a higher, to increase your status. I don't know how to phrase it exactly. Yeah, to allow yourself for more options for a mate, to improve yourself so that you have more options for a mate. Did you know you can get dopamine just by saying things? You can, well, what I mean is, if you have a project idea, I'm gonna build a rocket ship and I'm gonna go to the moon, and you tell people about it, you're less likely to do that because you already get that dopamine of having done that just by saying it. So you actually shouldn't say things because you shouldn't say your long-term goals, your ambitious ideas, because you're less likely to do them because you already got that dopamine. That's a little fun fact. Okay, so now we looked at all of these things that are good for a mate or improve your success for finding a mate. But being Catholic is not so much. That's pretty niche. In fact, you're lowering your odds of finding a mate because there's less people that are Catholic. To me, at least, it seems that there's almost nobody in Canada that's Catholic. It's absurd. Nobody that's Catholic that's female. I mean, there's that's actually a practicing Catholic though. So rare. Optimal mate. Yeah, so what you want to be an optimal mate to who though? So this is the thing. Do you want if you're Catholic though, you find a niche in women who are going to be Catholic. And so you can kind of optimize for a mate that who will be like you have your own niche, right? And now you have a mate who's going to be perfect, much more suited, much more close to you, to your values, to who you are. Rather than if you weren't Catholic, if you didn't have any values, you could basically pick up any girl and that girl would be a considerable you could consider her to be a long-term mate just because you have no values. There's nothing that restricts you from being a long-term mate. That's not a good thing though. You want to have values. I would say you want to be Catholic and have those values so that you're able to filter out all these bad mates. So the idea being you do want to be an optimal mate, but you want to be an optimal mate for the best mate. I want to make myself the most optimal mate for my best pairing. Doesn't make sense now that I say it, but I think it makes sense if you think about it. The Way of the Superior Man says admit you want your higher purpose rather than perfect intimate relationship. But what if yeah. What if perfect intimate relationship is my highest purpose? This is something that I struggled with too. When I was reading the Way of the Superior Man, before that, I was thinking my highest purpose is to be the best figure for my wife, for my family. I think that's still the case. But it's kind of paradoxical where in order to be that figure, in order to be a perfect, the best, to have the best relationship, I have to be this masculine role model. And and in order to do that, my highest purpose shouldn't be being in a perfect intimate relationship. It should rather be being driven for something else. I don't know if that's necessarily true though. I think I'll think about that for the rest of my life. There's no solution that I can come up with. I think the way that I live my life will reflect what the solution is. What the solution is at least in my current time. Oh man. So I wrote this a while ago. I wrote this January 31st. No, I'm almost at 20 minutes. January 31st. And I added points just as I was reading The Way of the Superior Man. And one of the points I now read, try not to reiterate any of your points. Challenge. Impossible. Throughout my videos, I've realized that I'm reiterating my points a lot. I've gotten better. In this video, I didn't do it too much. I was close to doing it. I've improved a lot. So, the other there's another thing the Way of the Superior Man says. Should I lean to my edge in everything? So he wants you to lean, what he calls lean to your edge. Just work the hardest you possibly can. Work at your peak. But he doesn't mean that necessarily in academics. He means that in your life, in your drive for the higher purpose, you want to work, lean to your edge. But now I ask, should I lean to my edge in everything? If leaning to my edge in just my higher purpose is good, then shouldn't I want to lean to my edge in everything? How do you even do that? What would this look like? And the first thought that comes up is burnout. If you lean into your edge in everything, there's no way you can properly facilitate leaning to your edge in all aspects of your life. You're bound to neglect something. So I don't think that's necessarily healthy, but I think you could say something along the lines of lean more into your edge in some things. Push yourself as hard as is reasonable, not as hard as possible. I've also struggled, so as a university student, I struggle with the question, should being studious be something I want? Should getting high grades, achieving high grades, be something that I want? I used to think that in elementary school. I got really high grades. I got A pluses always, almost always. I remember this one time, our entire class got a C on this test. Not a C. I got a C, but people were failing. They got like D's and D minus, like pure fail. It was in grade 3. It was a tough test. You had to actually study for it. But back in elementary school, nobody studied for tests. It was just your raw intellect if you knew it or you didn't. That was a funny quiz. And then the teacher realized her mistake, realized I shouldn't have actually made this test so hard. And it worked out afterwards. that that was a funny time though. We were all stressing because we all got our mark back, and the smartest kid in the class, or everyone who considered the smartest kid in class, he got like a D as well, or like a C. I think I got a C as well. Anyway, doesn't matter. I'm the smartest kid in the class. I'm the smartest kid in the world. That's how you have to view the world. You're the smartest kid in the world. You're the smartest man in the world. That's right. That's right. I mean, do you even want to be intelligent? Intelligence is linked to, there's a correlation between intelligence and depression. Fun fact. Maybe I'm just spewing garbage. Maybe I just like misinformation. But I remember Jordan Peterson talking about this. And I've read Flowers for Algernon about this guy who's a complete idiot. By the actual sense of the word, idiot originally meant something like below 50 IQ. No, this guy was a moron. So 70 IQ, around 70 IQ, less than. Which means he can function for basic tasks, but he can't understand anything. It's very difficult for him to display. He's confused all the time when people interact with him, when people show emotions or they make fun of him, for example. It's very hard for him to understand what they're making fun of. So he just laughs along with them. But when he was stupid, he was happy. He was blissfully ignorant. And then now that he underwent a procedure to make him incredibly a genius. So smart that he surpassed IQ measurements, they weren't able to track his IQ just because of how smart he was. This is a fictitious book. And at that point, he becomes incredibly depressed. The takeaway Maybe you don't want to, you might think you want to be smart, you want to have a high IQ, but in reality, you don't. My entire life, I've wanted to always be smart. I've always wanted to be considered smart. But I've reconciled with there will be people that are smarter than me. And my cope is that even I might not even want to be smart. God made me the way I am, and I'm happy. I shouldn't be jealous of people being smarter. It's okay. This is the last point that I added last night, which is why I wanted to do this talk, this note today actually. The main reason that pushed me to do this note instead of all the other notes that I have in queue ready to be talked about. What am I looking for in a girl if she should be feminine and not career oriented according to the way of the superior man? Should I be okay with her doom scrolling as long as she loves me? The way of that book, it emphasizes these poles that you need in a relationship. Well, you need in a relationship to maintain intimacy and strong connections and love, and not slowly drown into being a platonic friendship relationship. The feminine is not career oriented. The feminine is not something that's driven to purpose. The feminine wants love, wants to be fully loved, and wants to be able to, no, wants to be able to give herself in full love. That's what the book says. I would agree with it. The pure feminine. But if you don't have any of that career oriented improvement mindset being better, that means that she's just going to be okay. Should you settle for someone who just wants to doom scroll? Because that could be someone who's perfectly feminine. But maybe it means perfectly feminine as perfectly masculine, perfectly feminine. Oh, you know what? I know a role model, a perfect role model for perfect femininity. That would be Mary, the mother of Jesus, the mother of God. And she didn't doom scroll. Actually, I don't know much of what she did, but she perfectly served her husband and was perfectly served her husband. Yeah, it's not too clear what she did in the Bible. Obviously, we know she was a very good mom, a mom that didn't sin. But I mean, in terms of her projects, the way I see it, she didn't have any projects. She didn't have this drive to save humanity. She was just pure in love. And maybe that's good enough. But that doesn't mean doom scroll. Because Mary didn't doom scroll. Why doesn't it mean doom scroll though? Because that's deteriorating yourself. Doom scrolling is bad no matter what because it's deteriorating who you are. Isn't it? You could see doom scrolling as neutral. No, you're wasting your gifts. You're wasting your gifts of love, your attention. You're just wasting yourself. But now that I think about it, any other feminine activity, any other activity, even though it doesn't drive to a purpose, is still very attractive. So, for example, this is going to sound so misogynistic. Cooking, baking, cleaning, taking care of the tasks that you would need to do to take care of a family, to take care of children. That's incredibly attractive. Already past the 30-minute mark. I should probably end it here.